Hi, everyone. My name is Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shamans Cave. We have an incredibly interesting topic for you today.
Yes, and I'm Renee Baribeau, and we're really looking forward to talking about how do you save yourself? That makes us both laugh. I guess laughter is one good way through this, isn't it, though?
Yeah. Well, I think that so many people are laughing, trying to laugh, but crying right now. And as we know, laughter is the best medicine. And basically, we're living in a world that's truly gone insane.
Hmm.
Um, and so we have to find that place of laughter inside of ourselves. We have to. And if we were going to learn from, uh, people, there's so many people who have been in concentration camps and have been in situations where they've been tortured or abused. And of course, a lot of those people died or they really went down. They didn't have the support or the spiritual strength to get through what they've been through. But we have people who, went through unbelievable things when they were children and have lived into their 90s and into their hundreds. And you have to ask yourself a question: how did they find a way to get through that kind of horror and that kind of terror and to be able to live a life where they did find their laugh, and they laughed during the bad times and the good times too. And we're back and we're not being tortured. A lot of people are, but those of us who are listening, I'm assuming that you're a free person who can make choices in your life. And a lot of people don't know what to do with the choices that we have right now because, due to social media, people can finally really stand up and talk about the abuses, which we didn't have in former times. But a lot of people are contacting both Renee and I about, do we stand up and do we use social media to start speaking our truth? Or do we save ourselves? And I'm just going to say, and let Renee speak, that the answer to this is if we do all our own inner work and we change ourselves. It's massive what's going on in the world right now. Nobody can change the world right now. Nobody has that power. But you have the power to change yourself and to save yourself right now.
So I so much agree with all of that because if we I go back to the cycles, okay? We're in, you and I have talked about this many times that we're in the destruction cycle. So if you look at, the tree or the anything that's out in nature, that this destruction of it so that it becomes usable again is a part of nature's cycle. And this is just a bigger, grander, the end of the Holocene cycle, which if it's been going on for over 7,000 years, that the cycle of destruction, if you look in you divided it in a quarter, could take a couple thousand years. And yet we want to place such importance on absolutely every single decision that's being made out there. And I'm not discounting the decisions that are being made out there, but it just seems like every decision that I'm seeing or every bantering that I'm seeing on Facebook in those places, it's like there's we're looking for the divide. We're
Right.
looking for the place where we don't get along. We're looking for the place I mean, I saw somebody calling the soldiers in the Russian army evil. How do we know that a soldier is good or evil? They're a soldier. They're doing their job. And whether or not we agree with their job is our projection onto that. And trust me, I'm not condoning war because I think we're in a very precarious position with what we could do to ourselves with a war at this point in history. But I think that we have to go back to our individual responsibility, and I think that's what we really wanted to talk about is, am I being individually responsible for what I'm sharing into the world?
Yeah, and as human beings, none of us want war. I mean, absolutely none of us want war. In my March Transmutation News, which uh, came out recently, I talked about that the COVID is a teacher for us in that the COVID doesn't care what the other variant's color is, what the size is, what the shape is, what language it speaks. They just join together to thrive together, and that's what nature beings do. I just learned that blue jays, and we have blue jays are beautiful, but we have a blue jay problem. The blue jays are bullies. There's bullies in nature just like there's bullies in the human world. And so we have a big problem. We're real bird lovers at our house, and we feed an amazing amount of birds. And when the blue jays come, we don't really appreciate it because they're bullies and they don't let the birds get any food whatsoever. But what I recently learned about blue jays is they all come together in community to help each other thrive. They all come together. They don't let a blue jay go down without coming to help and support. And we don't understand that as human beings. We don't understand that power, and it's really getting crazy out there. I don't want to um, share too much about this, but somebody actually asked my webmaster about one of my beliefs because she wanted to know if I believed in something to make a decision of whether or not she should study with me. You know, that's pretty amazing that this is where the world has
Mm,
come to at this point. I mean, it's really amazing what's coming out of people's mouths and how people are behaving. And what I'm actually writing in my next transmutation news, my April transmutation news, is everybody's so worried about the earth. The earth is 4.6 billion years old, which I say on every single Shaman's Cave show. I'm sure people are sick of hearing this already. Why are you worried about a being that's been here for 4.6 billion years? But humans are in danger of extinction through our behavior. We're in danger of extinction right now. And so you better find that place inside yourself where you can find safety because the world out there, it's not where you're going to find safety. And unfortunately, there's not enough who are standing up to make a change. And so we really have to go back to the teachings of thousands of years is change yourself and change the world.
mhm. Listen to the wind. When I was 7 or something, a blue jay came down and pecked me on the head once. I was just minding my own business. It probably looked like I was offered up a good nest or something like that. I did this experiment this week. You know, I'm not really political. I'm more about the personal. And this was the whole topic of saving yourself, because I really believe that if we all just took care of ourselves and in a good integrity way, that a lot of the world would handle itself. And so I posted this thing. I didn't even read the article, okay, about free speech. It was about Joe Rogan. And I listen to the news. I go, like, I wanted to see what the conspiracy people were saying about the war, but really they just are still focused on COVID. I don't know when they're going to get off of this vaccination. But I go across the board because I don't know. I only know what the truth of what the wind is telling me. That's where I make most of my decisions. But so I just posted this to see how I was taking the temperature on Facebook. And sure enough, people are there. How can you post this? Going on and on. And free speech is good. You know what? I keep getting free speech is good as long as it agrees with what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, no, free speech means everyone gets to talk and I get to choose.
Right.
And well, you can't go into a crowded movie theater. This is somebody used. You can't go into a crowded movie theater and yell fire. I'm thinking, well, you could.
Right.
Might land you in jail, but you could. And so it may not be, if you were taking care of yourself and keeping your street clean, you wouldn't go into the crowded movie theater and yell fire, because you would understand the consequences of your actions. So it was kind of curious. Some people wrote me privately and said, they're why'd you pick this example when they're censoring children's books? They're like, well, why are you picking the children, censoring the children's books when there's this issue too? I mean, it's it goes into, and then I watched the about the Ricardos, and we just forget that it was not even 40 years ago when people could have been hoisted right out of Hollywood for being communists,
Right.
and
Right.
not even that they were communists.
Right.
They were perceived as communists.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing your own street cleaning, then your perceptions may not be as clear as you need them to be to discern when the wind comes blowing in your face, to make a real honest and accurate decision about what your next move is.
Yeah. I don't know where this fits into the discussion. I really don't. It sounds a little bit out of the discussion, but it's a story that is kind of fascinating, and it goes into the topic of, all the division and the political division and everything. I went to Brooklyn College for a very short time. I dropped out and I moved to the Haight-Ashbury and moved into a commune, and I did the whole 60s thing. Um, but before that, I went to Brooklyn College, and this was back in the well, no, the early 70s. I graduated high school in, I think, 71. And Brooklyn College, believe it or not, I know people won't believe it. We had a student center, like all schools do. But the second floor of our student center, it was legal to smoke pot. Um, and they actually had security guards there. They just checked your ID that you were a student of the school, and you went in, and everybody was freely. It wasn't like you went into a little room or a little corner. It was a gigantic, gigantic room. Brooklyn College was huge, so there was at least 100 people there all the time smoking pot. So, so I'm really stoned one day, and I started talking to some people about uh, um, a, election for a student representative was coming up, and we decided to make a game. And I decided to run under the Conservative Party. Um, and I did the whole thing. I went door to door talking to students and people who had completely different beliefs than me. I didn't lie about my beliefs. I did not say, I will vote for this if you elect me. I didn't run on a platform. I ran as a person. I ran as Sandra Ingerman, but as on the Conservative Party, and I made no promises about anything. And so the night of the election came about, and it was really clear that I lost because, it was almost all the counting was almost over. And it turned out that I got the most votes, and that's why it took so long to figure it out. And so the point is I didn't run on a political platform. I ran just as a person,
Mhm.
and I chose a different party than I would normally choose for myself. And for the year that I was in Brooklyn College, I went into student government, and there was no division. I represented everybody. Um, and it was amazing. We flowed. There were no fights. We passed. We passed. Um, I don't know if you called them bills back in those days, but we passed things that were good for the whole campus, and we got along really well. And it was a real lesson to me about projection, and our perceptions on people, because I ran as one of the most conservative people, and that obviously is not who I was, but it was an experiment. We did it as an experiment to see what would happen. And so there's something about looking at people as individuals and who they are as a present instead of lumping them into all these people are good and all these people are bad. It's just not that simple.
Mhm.
It's not. We need to learn how to make more deeper human connections.
Did you vote away the pot smoking in the in the community hall?
Yeah.
She got all those pot smokers voting for her. That's funny. When I was in college, did the Miss Pogo U University pageant, and I I've never been very political. So this conservative Republican gave me this whole line about what equality was, and I just spouted it back, and I was doing really good because I had a tremendously good body back then, and I was in. After the interview, I was a runner up for first place. It was the talent that killed me, but well, you know what? And I think maybe that's really the greatest thing is that, if you look at life like a play, how do you want to project yourself out there? And there's just so many different ways. I'm a big advocate of community. And, the Wind Clan is all about building a community. And when you start to build a community, there can be serious headbutting. And it's not that there's not going to be the headbutting, it's how do you work that out because you're never going to see eye to eye with everybody in the group. And so, one of the things that I notice in our group is that the people who stay around are the people who can resolve those differences for themselves by looking at their own part of it a little bit deeper. So if I'm not getting along with someone, I end up taking it back to myself and saying, like for example, if I saw that the people in the army are evil, let's pray for those evil. Let's send those evil people sorcery. Basically, is what I interpreted it. I have to look inside and do the Mother Teresa inventory of myself. Where does that Hitler live inside of me? Where am I evil? And we don't want to look at our own parts about where are we the oligarchist, or where are we the where are we those same people who are the bullies? Where does the bully live inside of me?
Right. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, this whole thing with Russia is a little bit, I mean, I know it's difficult on everybody, but my family is all from the Ukraine. So,
Oh, I didn't know that. Hmm.
yeah, so, it just, I don't know how to
Right.
I'm stuck. I really don't know how to process this right at this moment, but it's something that I'm working on for sure. Um, and I wanted to say that, Renee and I laughing a lot about all of this. There's really serious things going on that we're all afraid of right now. I've basically, I'm just going to say it, I've basically become an agoraphobic. But the laughing and the looking at other sides and perceptions, it's not sacred. It is sacred.
Hmm.
We have to be the sacred clowns right now. We have to be, because people are just going to lose their minds.
Hmm.
Because like what Renee is saying about community, I've seen this in 40 years of teaching. And the key is, and what we're missing is that we haven't worked on ourselves. We've worked on our science skills, our reading skills, our history skills, but we haven't learned how to work on becoming mature individuals. So we're still stuck as children. And to be in a really strong, powerful community that can really heal and make change and be support for each other takes a maturity, because of course there's division that's going to come up. Everybody's going to have different opinions. People are bringing through different insights from the spirits. I teach in my shamanic journeying class. You have to understand that even the spirits have different opinions. And so I teach people there's nothing wrong with going to two or three different spirits with the same question. You're not insulting them. They have their different opinions on
Yep.
things, they have their different perceptions on things. So you're just collecting more opinions. And so there's just so much out there right now, and everybody has their own opinion. And a lot of people are getting hurt on so many different levels. Um, People are getting hurt physically from the division and from all the rioting. People are getting hurt emotionally and mentally. People are being canceled. I've been canceled by students. But it's really amazing to me how many students have canceled me, but then when they need a favor from me, they write me an email and ask me a favor. um, we're really we're not standing up in our true maturity as a human race. And so, as Renee says, community is the most important thing, and community is always going to butt heads, always going to butt heads.
Hmm.
The world is never going to agree with each other, but the emotional mature thing to do is to learn how to live and not agree with each other.
Hmm. I think that would be the really the big takeaway about how you save yourself is to understand that you're not going to always get along, and you're not definitely not going to agree, but that doesn't mean you can't hold space for the other side or the opposing viewpoint. The latest test that I've been doing for community is I'm thinking about joining the water board in my community, because isn't really, if you look at it, that's what is important. Where's the water going to come for the next 20 years or 30 years of my life? We want to make big changes out in the world, and yet there's the little changes that we can do on a day-to-day basis that would probably help us feel way more empowered than some of the other decisions that, we really don't have access to at the moment. And that's just to say that that wasn't my choice to have those other accesses. I didn't choose to go into politics. I didn't choose to become the president. That wasn't my timeline. That wasn't my destiny. But my timeline, my destiny is, how can I help the people that I'm working with today feel more empowered in their life?
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, when I'm really my father was, he was the president of every single board, he's one of those people. And my uncle was the mayor of New York, and it's just kind of in my blood. So I was the president of every class in in elementary school, junior high school, um, and and then I ran for student council in Brooklyn, and I've loved the being in politics, and I've loved being in community. And when I first got into shamanism, the division, which is worse now, but I got in as an innocent. I was 29 when I first started teaching shamanism. I was just an innocent. And the division, and we didn't have internet, but the division was still in the collective. And, we had Shamans Drum, the magazine, so we could see how bad the division was. And so finally, what I decided to do was I called together, I was living in California at the time, and I asked two people to help me. I contacted every single indigenous, non-indigenous teacher in California and set up a meeting for us to come together to talk about our differences. Over 100 teachers showed up. It was an amazing event. It was an amazing event. But it was really interesting because I asked the question, how can we be more supportive of each other? How can we help each other with the challenges that we're facing as teachers? And as we went around the room to all over 100 teachers who showed up, everyone said, I have no problems. I need no support. Nobody was willing to share their weakness or their fears or their challenges. It was seen as a sign of weakness in that group. Again, that was back in the early 1980s. And so, maybe I was a little bit ahead of my time in thinking that we can create this amazing, strong, united shamanic community in the West. But a part of it is being able to also see that we all have weaknesses too, and that it's not just what we can give with our community, it's how we share the challenges that we're going through, and that the challenges are not a weakness, and so that we shouldn't be afraid to share about the challenges that we're going through, because it helps us to learn from others, and to find that place inside of ourselves that knows how to be stronger and get us through these troubling times. And I think what Renee is saying is the key is community. And at the same time, it's also doing your own inner work so that you change both your own inner world and our outer world at the same time.
Absolutely, because we have to remember we are nature. It's not something that you're looking out from the window. So, if the branch falls from the tree, the branch is also falling from you. And I think that, it's, and I think we've kind of we're using that stick to beat it with. But for me, it's really hard to go in front of a group of people and share a weakness with them, because then, in that old collective mind, they're going to take that weakness and they're going to beat me with the tree that stick that just fell. And and so to have that, to be able, and our next show is going to be about how do you create that sacred space so that you can feel safe within that space that you're creating in the community, in order to show up as your best version of yourself. And trust me, if you can't make big changes out there, think about the small microcosm of what you can affect. And if you're a part of a group, maybe that's you're showing up for that group as a better participant, a better member. Like, like, oh, it's not convenient for me to go to this call today, but I'm gonna go because maybe somebody else, I need to show up for somebody else instead of just me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing that we're missing um, in the world, and we've been missing since the beginning of time, is that everybody came in with a different piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person came in with a different piece of the puzzle, and we all have a critical piece,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't realize it, and nobody is listening. We need your piece of
Mm-hmm.
the puzzle. We have to have it for wholeness. So we need you, and we need you to be as healthy as possible, and we need you to be strong as possible. And for now, we're in a storm.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a huge storm, and Renee led a beautiful journey a few times ago, and you can find it in our archives, to the Eye of the Storm. And that's a very powerful place to go. And part of your journey into the eye of the storm is the journey into yourself, to find that inner peace in yourself. And my husband he used to be a meditation teacher, and he lived with Krishnamurti, and he's very into the work. He does the work of Ramana Maharshi, and so he's into the principle of oneness. And he said, with the principle of oneness, as one changes, all changes.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is only oneness. And so it's all about really doing your work. And laughing at yourself. Um, you know, um, we're all acting crazy right now. We've all lost our minds. We're living in a world that we've all lost our minds. And laugh at yourself and go inside and do your work, and don't be afraid what you're going to find there. There's nothing that awful that lives inside of there. There's amazing beauty that is a reflection of the beauty of nature all around you. And find safety in that, and find strength in that, and find healing in that. And then what happens to the world in our lifetime is going to happen to the world.
Mm-hmm.
um,
And I would just want to end by saying, and if you're listening here, you're probably a forerunner. I was thinking this week that I have an emerging themes in behavioral health conference coming up in April at UCLA, and there's a panel on treatment resistant depression, right?
mhm.
And these young psychiatrists, or younger than us psychiatrists, are talking about all of they're talking about the psilocybins, and they're talking about the cannabis. They're talking about going back to things that Sandra and I learned about as coping mechanisms in our earlier lives, that now 40 years later are becoming the medicines for the times. And so just know that you probably are the hermit. You probably are walking in front of the other people. But remember, the hermit has the lamp. And The lamp is to show the way. It's
Very
not
good.
to shout the way. And so, how are you the way shower for other people who are going to be following 40 years behind you?
Exactly. And just and don't see yourself as being selfish in taking care of yourself right now. Do
Hmm.
not see yourself as selfish in taking care of yourself right now. Um,
Hmm. Self care is everything. And so, with that, what we would like our self care is to ask you to subscribe to the Shaman's Cave on YouTube because we're 100 away from our 10,000, and we have 24,500 people in our Facebook group. That means that there's 10,400 of you who haven't liked us on YouTube. So show your way right on over to YouTube and hit subscribe. And then, we put a lot of energy into this. We Even though we laugh, we have fun, we show up for this. That's what we're asking you. Show up for your community, show up for yourself, and we will be back here next week.
yes, and I keep writing the same thing on my transmutation news. It's not hard to push the subscribe button, and you won't be flooded by emails from anybody. You'll never hear from us if you don't want to. So, we are living in a very difficult time right now, and we all want to feel support. So, let's just take a moment before Renee and I end this session to just close our eyes for just a moment. And for all the people who are listening to the show and are looking for roadmaps and are looking for the way to be shown, let's just in our own way pray for the health and safety of each other. And may we all find our own way within to the deepest place within where the seeds of knowledge have always been living and waiting for us to water them so that they can grow and create a beautiful garden within, which will be reflected without. So we pray for our entire circle. We pray for safety. We pray that we emanate love and that we don't divide, but we listen with compassion and with an open heart. And we give thanks and blessings to all of you. Thank you so much for showing up and listening to our show. Blessings.
Mm.